Time to check on that weather report because you're hanging out at the card pool. I'm your host, Stu.
And I'm Kyle.
And today we're looking at the lovely set of Worldwake.
Yes, we are. This is part one of our multi-part set review of Worldwake. We're starting today with part one of our look at our hidden gems. You can also, of course, check out some of our previous episodes, which should be floating right around Stu's head right about now. Our last series was from Nemesis, so you can go back and check on those if you like. But without further ado, let's kick off this week's review.
Yep, and starting at no number other than 10. And this will be my card. We'll start off with Kyle, if you don't mind.
Oh, of course.
And it is a black instant called Urge to Feed. Now, this one's been printed a couple times, but this is the first actual printing that we see this card. It is a 2-drop double black instant that reads, target creature gets -3/-3 until end of turn. Also, you may tap any number of untapped vampire creatures you control. And if you do, put a 1/1 counter on each of those vampires. So this is a unique kind of tribal spot removal for creatures because, yes, it may or may not kill something. I mean, it's boltable. It's lightning bolt for black almost.
Yeah.
But the reason that really makes it shine is that you can get a boost. And typically these boosts you see are till the end of turn. This does not have that clause. They get a counter permanently, or at least until they're off the field.
Yeah, no, this is really interesting, and I don't really think vampires were that big competitively as a tribe when Worldwake was in Standard, just because there were so many other powerful things you could be doing. But if they were, this would be a key role player because this is really, really good. It's a great tribal removal spell, even though it's not actually tribal, and a combat trick too. It's kind of insane, getting around indestructible with minuses like black does, and making a permanent pump of as many creatures as you want to tap for it, all for just 2 mana. And it's an instant. This is awesome.
Yeah.
Like, really, it is.
And I like it for in a commander play because this is almost like the same place that you would see a Doomblade. But again, for a tribal Doomblade that we're seeing here. Inherently, again, like I said, you might not kill something, but minusing something enough might be enough to make it so you can kill it and keep your creature. If you have a 1/1 token, it's now a 2/2 token if you declare the blocker first and then use this card to then tap it to still have the block go through.
Right, exactly.
You can neuter that creature, make this guy bigger along with your whole army, your commander or whatever, and it's...
Yeah, there's just so many cool things you can do with this, and like, even if it didn't have that whole removal spell part of it, would I just tap, 2 mana for an instant that could pump all my vampires? Yeah, you're darn right I would. So then just putting a removal spell onto this makes it even better. We see all kinds of removal spells in this general area, like Bile Blight, for example, is one that I really remember back when Theros was legal. These kind of spells define formats. And if vampires had just had a little more power in Worldwake Standard, I feel this would have defined it too. I mean, just think of how good a card this is in a deck like Edgar Markov, which pumps out vampire tokens like crazy. And most of the time, I wouldn't normally consider putting something like this in a commander deck because, -3/-3 isn't going to be that relevant. But like I said, that's not all it is. This just pumps an entire team of vampires by 1 for 2 mana. That alone is enough to make it good.
Yeah, the only other card that'd maybe be in between with this is Languish, which is a 4-drop, which does a global effect of -3 to every creature on the field. So again, being wide versus narrow, your choice there. But this is just something I had to take note of. It's very unusual with how it interacts with creatures, and it's, again, little niche for what it can do, but just a powerhouse.
And even if you're not sold on this in Commander, if you just play 60-card casual with your friends and you're into tribal vampires, if you don't run 4 of this card in your deck, I don't know what your problem is, but you should.
Yeah, you can make those big boosts happen.
Yeah.
But moving on to your number 10, Kyle.
Yes.
Take it away.
All right. Well, my number 10 is Abyssal Persecutor. And I chose this card just really for the weirdness factor above all else. But it is a demon creature that costs 4, 2 colorless and 2 black, and it's a 6/6 with flying and trample. However, it also has the ability that as long as it's in play, you can't win the game and your opponents can't lose the game. This is pretty much the exact opposite of a card like Platinum Angel, which stops you from losing and stops your opponents from winning. So as long as this card is out, even if your opponent's life total hits 0 or they have 10 poison or whatever, they still can't lose the game.
It's the reciprocal 100%.
Yeah, it's probably not actually very good, but I just find this card hilarious.
Well, it can be good, and the reason why I like it is it can be good in a gifting strategy. Now, typically we see that with Zedru, who is red, white, and blue.
Right. Oh,
Murica.
yes,
Yeah,
yes.
so it doesn't have the black touch. However, you could throw this in as a tech if you're doing some sort of control build. I mean, Rakdos, you can maybe afford it in there. Again, I'm not entirely sure what the true commander home of this would be, but it's just a great way to add some sort of weirdness to a card or a deck, because no one's going to want to kill this, but
Yeah.
yet they're going to be fine with taking damage. So inherently, it becomes a, I don't know, a Trojan horse of sorts.
Well, and it's a 6/6 with flying and trample for 4. That's really good stats as it is. But I actually do know the commander home for this, I think. Remember when they made those new commander planeswalkers from 2018? There was the Esper one that was basically a sort of Zedru type effect
I
that
guess.
could switch control of permanents. So that would probably be where you would see this card. Because as you said, gifting this to somebody else is probably the best way to use it.
It's more ideal, but even if you aren't doing that, inherently, as long as this is on the field, players don't care if they lose life. So inherently, I think the whole idea is to make it so that they become docile and lazy. Like, I'm not chump blocking, I'd rather keep the guy. I'm not going to lose. And, I don't know, my opponents aren't going to kill us because they're not going to lose. So it just becomes, I don't know,
Right.
careless magic, I guess?
It's really interesting, and yeah, give us a clue down in the comments as to where you would really want to play this card, but hey, I think it's pretty cool that this thing even exists. It's just fun to me.
Yeah.
I felt like I needed to include it.
Yeah, I could totally agree. But now, going on to my number 9 card, I'm going to go something that's a little bit more straightforward in its versatility. It is a creature called Tide Force Elemental. It costs 3 mana for an elemental creature with a 2/1 body. And for 1 blue, you can tap it, and you may tap or untap another target creature. Lastly, it has landfall, and landfall is a mechanic that whenever a land comes into play, something happens, and in this case, what you can do is you can untap this creature. So the reason why this is really good and really strong is being able to tap or untap creatures is good offensively and defensively. You can either make it so your stuff can come back in action, or you can take an opponent's creature out of action. And inherently, you can do that at least twice per turn with this guy, provided you have no other way of untapping him, which is decent. However, it also is something that's really good for enabling combos. Typically, you see in Magic being able to untap and retap a creature over and over again should give you either infinite mana, excessive amount of turns, excessive amount of damage, and we see that with cards like Staff of Domination, just giving you that versatility to continually untap and tap or retap and untap, and whatever versatility you want to use it for, it's there. So this is something that's, again, a little bit more subtle and a little bit less strong when it reaches, but it can do the job.
Yeah, I don't know, this isn't one of the more powerful landfall creatures in my opinion, but it has some utility, which makes it kind of interesting to me. Also, the fact that it's an elemental, I know like that makes you happy because
it
that
works
is sort
in a
of a
certain
good
group.
tribal strategy.
Yeah.
But I don't know, like I probably wouldn't include this in a deck necessarily because blue doesn't have a ton of the best like land getting cards, so that's kind of iffy on the landfall.
You're correct.
But also, I don't know how much tapping or untapping is really relevant over the long-term course of the game.
It grows. Well, all right, think about it like this, right? This is a tribal 1,000-year elixir. Not for the activating the effect sooner, but being able to untap and untap, or tap or untap certain creatures like that. So inherently, if you're using 1, you can use 2, and this is a creature which can be more tutorable. But you are in blue, so you could say the argument for finding artifacts like 1,000-year elixir. It's another option. It's a budget option, and I mean, doubling down on effects can be strong.
Well, that's true, yeah. And in a deck like, for example, I never know how to pronounce this right, Mariki Reburit.
Marik Rebrit. This is the one that I can say you can't.
One of those really old commanders that really loves tapping and untapping. This could be pretty good.
It's an Esper one way back from Ice Age. Super strong one where you can take people's, pretty much their creatures as long as it's tapped, but it doesn't give them...
to destroy them.
Exactly. It kills it when you don't control it anymore, as opposed to just returning it back to them. So it's this would be a key card in that.
Definitely. Well, moving on, I guess, to my own number 9 here, a very different sort of card. We got Marshal's Anthem. Now, this is an enchantment that costs 4 mana to play, 2 colorless and double white. And it also has the multi-kicker effect. So we've seen kicker as a little additional cost for a spell to do a little bit more. Multi-kicker basically means you can pay that kicker cost as many times as you want to do something that many times. So for example, this one is multi-kicker, just one colorless and a white, so 2 mana. Creatures you control get +1/+1. That's just a generic benefit of this enchantment. However, when Marshal's Anthem enters the battlefield, you can return up to X target creatures from your graveyard to the battlefield, where X is the number of times Marshal's Anthem was kicked. So, all of that said, an Anthem effect like that for 4 mana is probably overcosted. Like, I would definitely take it at 2 mana. I would probably take it at 3 mana, especially if it's a creature. 4 is a little bit steep for just
Gideon.
a generic +1/+1.
No.
However, if you play this on turn 4, that's one thing. But if you play this later in the game, especially if you play this when you have like maybe something like 8 mana, and not only are you getting a buff like that, but then you're getting 2 creatures, or who knows what they are at that point, back from your graveyard, now that's a good deal.
I agree with you for that. I will strongly disagree with you about the Anthem effects, because you have Gideon, the Planeswalker one, where as soon as he comes in, you get the emblem. If you -4 him, and you get like a universal Anthem for the rest of the time, ally of Zendikar.
But I hope you don't have to just do that right away. It's kind of a waste.
I mean, why not? It's a free Anthem that can't be removed. This is almost the same exact cost, except this is now something that is vulnerable. But you're right, where this is the longer side of the game, the way better this becomes. You're going to have some strong key cards in the grave. Everyone hates Sun Titan. They hate on that card. Being able to just, I don't know, for 2 mana, get it back in addition to boosting it. A 7/7 that returns itself back. Now another card with it that's also getting a boost.
Yeah.
Very strong, very scary.
White doesn't get that kind of recursion very often, but when it does, it tends to be really powerful, like Sun Titan and Karmic Guide, and this card,
Arc even.
yeah, potentially this card is just another addition to all of that. It just makes me mad that kicker is such that if you blink this, you can't kick it. It's only if you cast it. That makes me really sad.
It makes it less
whatever.
broken. I won't fully argue with it, but yeah, if it's a great card to have, great for Enchantress strategies, and solid piece of commander.
Yeah, I actually used to play this card a lot in commander decks. I've kind of left off more recently, but it still was a good option.
Definitely. Now, moving on to number 8, I'm going to go to probably the most Power Ranger card we have from this set. It is Terastodon. And then you're going to go into the whole different line of like the giant dinosaurs that they jumped into as robots. But this card is a creature that costs 8 mana, 6 generic, and double green for an elephant with a 9/9 body. You don't see elephant too often. But it reads, when this creature enters the battlefield, destroy up to 3 target non-creature permanents. For each permanent you destroy, or put into the graveyard this way, its controller puts a 3/3 green elephant creature token into the battlefield. So one thing that's key to note is if cards are getting exiled and not going to the grave, they will get nothing.
Right.
So if you have a ground seal like you see in green, it prohibits them from getting anything.
Or rest in peace, or anything like that.
A huge variety of things out there like that. So inherently you can get all the pluses of like a Beast Within without giving them the Beast Within.
Yeah, I mean, I love Terastodon. Like, it's a great creature. Just high stats for its cost, 9/9 for 8, even without trample or anything like that. That's still pretty good. And it gets rid of...
if it had trample, it'd be even that much better.
Probably, yeah. But it gets rid of all kinds of problem permanents, which is just so great. Because it's destroying 3 things for that much. It's just really good. And also, it may give a token in return, but that makes it, in my opinion, sort of a fair way to hate on problem lands.
I agree. I mean, you do see this happen just to hit a whole bunch of lands when it comes out, or it will kill a lot of combo pieces. This is pretty much Green's main answer to everything else if you don't have a Beast Within anymore or an acidic slime. This is for the down-the-road long-term plans. And it is a great card. It's a green staple. You see it all across Blink decks, especially like Rune of the Hidden Realms. Loves a card like this just to be able to repeat over and over again. Yeah, they'll get an army, but if they don't have mana to cast anything else, deal with that army, you dealt with that player.
And also, there is that rare occasion where you want to destroy your own things to make more tokens.
Yep.
Which, that could be pretty good. I mean, sacrifice a couple of your own lands late in the game to get 9 more power on your sides. You got like 18 for 8 mana.
Or you want stuff in the grave. If you want to put something in the grave for some sort of strategy, because this is mono green. It can go into any other wheelhouse. It works in Dredge. It works in... Gruul it works in, like
Pretty
all
much
sorts of
anything,
things. So
yeah.
it's pretty solid.
Can't kill creatures, which is a downside, but then again, it's green, so you can't really
Green really
expect that.
can't. It's got very limited ways of doing that.
Yeah, but it's great. I feel like people do know that this card exists, so it might not be that hidden of a hidden gem.
But I want to talk
love
about
this
it's the
card.
original printing, so sorry. But moving on to your number 8, Kyle. Kick it.
All right, well, this one actually was reprinted recently. This is Dragon Master Outcast. And this is going to the opposite end of the scale in that it's a very early game creature, but it has a lot of late game potential. It's a 1/1 for 1, and it's a human shaman. At the beginning of your upkeep, if you control 6 or more lands, put a 5/5 red dragon creature token with flying onto the battlefield. Now, this
It's
is
so strong.
Yeah, this is something that Red doesn't really see that often, in that it's an early drop with serious late game potential. Honestly, if you play this on the first turn, it's a 1/1 for 1. Maybe you'll get a couple of attacks in, maybe it'll chump block something, maybe you really won't get anything out of it. This is really starting to shine when you get it like toward the middle turns of the game or later, and then people realize for just 1 mana, you put a serious threat on the board that is going to start pumping out dragons every turn. That is seriously good.
This is good in both Dragon Tribal, but it's also good
yeah.
with any color that ramps. So green and red, this is a godsend, because if you had this in your opening hand, go ahead, you Kodama's Reach, you do any ramp spell out there to get up to that 7th land real quick. It is just so bonkers and powerful because, I mean, you're not going to attack and block with this guy if you don't have to. Why not make us 5/5 who can deal with everything?
Yeah, this actually used to be one of the money cards of this set a long time ago before it was reprinted in Battle for Zendikar, but this was originally very popular competitively just because of all the things that we mentioned, but it's kind of gotten a little too slow for Modern or really any of those other formats that it's legal in. But yeah, in Commander, this is an all-star, and I would play this in almost any red deck just because of the serious late game potential
even if it's just
has.
goblins, it would be fine. I mean, if this card was a goblin,
that'd be really good.
It'd be way higher than a mythic, I think, in that regard. But I like it almost in the sense that you see with Thematic Compass. It has the ability just to sit there, and if you don't end up using it right then and there, it gets you late-term value, which is, again, what we've said like over and over again.
Yeah, definitely. You got to be careful with this one. It may fly under the radar early on, but it'll get you if you're not careful. Well,
they're definitely going to have to waste a removal spell, whether it's a board wipe just to kill this one creature or something that they really want to hold on for later.
Oh, yeah.
So it's definitely got its political plays. But moving on from your red card to mine, Kyle, we're going to go to number 7. And it is a trap card. It is called Stone Idol Trap. It costs 6 mana, 5 generic, and a red for an instant trap. And it reads, Stone Idol Trap costs 1 less to cast for each attacking creature. In addition, put a 6/12 colorless construct artifact creature token with trample onto the battlefield. I can't believe I said that. And exile it at the beginning of your next end step. All right, I'm done congratulating myself. So right here, this is a very unusual kind of card. So we see traps. Each color has its own trap. But the one that stuck out to most is this one in red, because it does something red truly doesn't do. It's kind of got like a Blasphemous Act kind of cost reduction, but it has a token that can stay around until your turn. It's got a big enough body to pretty much handle almost anything. It's an artifact. It can go with certain synergies there, stuff like, I mean, like what commanders in red don't use artifacts? Like it's almost half of them right there. So it's something that can be a great combat trick. It's something that can be a great combo. It's something that if you go ahead and you duplicate more tokens, you can create an army like crazy. It's very versatile and very red chaos goofy impulse single play kind of style. I don't know. You can really throw this in almost any red deck.
Yeah, I'm not usually a huge fan of the Trap series. Some of them do see competitive play for various reasons to fight certain kinds of decks, but they're really only good in very specific circumstances, and most of them are, in my opinion, a little too weak to really see a lot of play when you could just play something that costs less and does more. However, I do like this one, Stu. This might be my favorite one of all of the traps.
Thank you, Kyle.
Just because of the fact that it's worded as such that exile the token in your next end step, meaning you can play this on the opposing player's turn, probably block some kind of big creature that they were trying to hit you with, maybe you get rid of it even, and then this sticks around until the end of your next turn, so you can attack them for 6 with trample damage. That's pretty good, really, and who knows, this could come out for 1 mana. 1. That's
Yep.
great.
Yeah, you can get it out super early, and also if you do something that deals with toughness over attack, you got a 12/12. And
Yeah.
those definitely exist as commanders, they exist as global effects on other people. I mean, it's an artifact. We already said with red, with artifacts, there's so much interactions of sacrificing, bringing them back, getting your mana, targeting something, etc., etc. So it's
Yeah.
versatile for what it can do, and the more colors you add into it, the simpler it can get. As long as you have one red, like you said, Kyle, you can make it cheap. Also, you don't have to worry about using it on the attack step if you don't want to.
Yeah,
You
exactly.
can.
You could just play it on your own turn. I mean, the token probably won't be able to attack if you do that, but you can do it.
Yeah.
That's fine. Yeah, there's plenty of things you can do with an artifact like that. So.
Or actually, one of the things I do like is it could be a play in grave pack strategies, giving you an out to being able to sacrifice something that you don't want to. But I think we're going to talk about that a little bit more with your next card.
We are actually. So coming up at my number 7 on this list is Butcher of Malakir. And as Stu said, this is a Grave Pact ripoff of sorts. It's a vampire warrior that costs 7 mana, 5 and 2 black, and it's a 5/4 with flying. Also, whenever Butcher of Malakir or another creature you control is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, each opponent sacrifices a creature. Yeah, that's pretty much exactly why I chose it, Stu. It's Grave Pact, and it's a flying creature, and it's really giant. So
And vampire.
Yeah, and again, a really relevant, great tribe there. So really, what's not to like about this card? If you're running Grave Pact, if you're running Dictate of Erebos, you best be running this card too.
Yeah, it's one of the 3 pinnacles of what Grave Pack likes and wants and needs. And like we're also saying, it's a creature, can be cheated into play via whatever you want in black pretty much. Can be thrown into the grave, be brought back, can be cheated into play, works with tribal synergies to speed it up, bring it out. It is very good. It's just a little high costed where the other ones are like, what, 4 to 5 mana to bring them out?
Yeah, but unlike Grave Pact, it should be noted, if this guy dies, you actually get something out of it. Unlike those enchantments, which doesn't really anything happens when they get rid of them. But this guy, if they destroy him rather than exile him, everyone's still going to lose a creature.
Yeah, so it makes it so blocking him is scary, or it being blocked.
Yeah.
Like it's or it used as a blocker. I'll reiterate. Sorry, it adds a different play, adds a different ploy. Grave Pack's a very strong strategy, so being able to have this in more cards is something that makes that deck even scarier.
Yeah, it just adds another level of redundancy to all that cool stuff, and I love Grave Pact, so I'm all about this card, obviously.
I'm fine as it as an accessory, not as the main engine of a thing. But anyway, moving away from black and into my blue card that I have here. At number 6, we have a card called Spell Contortion. Now, this is a blue instant that costs 3 mana, 2 generic, and a blue. And it also has the multi-kicker, which Kyle so happily described the effect before. I can't talk, I'm sorry. But it is a counter spell that makes it so when you cast it, its controller has to pay 2 generic mana to it. And in addition to that, you draw a card for each time this card was kicked. So this is a kind of, mana leak that you see as a counter spell.
It's not even as good as Mana Leak, though.
I mean, it's a less than that thing, but the main thing I like about this is a counter spell that can draw you cards. Now, control players typically leave all this mana open to give you this very ominous feel, like whatever you cast is not going to stay around.
Yeah.
It could be anything from a Cyclonic Rift to I don't know, Turn to Frogs or Polymorphous Jess or Pongify.
Yeah.
So everything that there could be is going through your opponent's head. But this is something, it's like, all right, if you're kind of dwindling on the card draw, pump everything you have into it and just make it so that you can now replenish your hand. You could even still leave the 2 blue mana open there to play mind games with them for the OG counterspell or a mana drain.
Yeah, I don't generally like conditional counter spells, like you were saying, because they're just so easy to play around. Paying 2 mana to get by this is really nothing, in my opinion. Somebody should be able to do that, and if they really want to make something stick, they will do it. However, even if this doesn't counter anything, I do like the fact that in addition to, making them spend more of their mana to do it, you could still draw a bunch of cards off it late in the game. I don't like it really that early in the game, but once it gets later, pretty much like the Marshal's Anthem that we already discussed, the later it is, the better this card probably is, unlike something like Mana Leak that's really only good in the early game, and then that's about it.
Or other formats predominantly.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's why I think it has a home in Commander, just for the effect of being able to give you that long-term advantage. Commander games, they last a while. We've done one at least, 3.5 hours long?
Oh, yeah,
and that was
at
just
least.
one-on-one. So legit, being able to make it so you can get answers from unconventional ways, or even just use the counterspell as a pure counterspell, you have your options. It's almost Mogul in that effect.
Yeah, sort of. And of course, if you do something crazy like getting infinite mana, you can then maybe counter even one of your own spells and just draw your entire deck
Exactly,
off this.
and that's
so.
one of the things I was actually about to
guess,
get into.
yeah.
So it's a tricky card, off the grid, cheap, and can be, I think you said, a potential win con.
Perhaps. Well, I actually want to talk more about that because this card provides its own win condition if people, end up trying to play into it.
Definitely.
Yes, number 6 on my list is Kazul, Tyrant of the Cliffs. And this is kind of my obligatory commander shout out because I really couldn't do this and do a top 10 list without a good legendary card on one of my picks. So this guy is a 5/4 for 5, 3 colorless, and 2 red, and he's a legendary ogre warrior. Whenever a creature an opponent controls attacks, if you're the defending player, put a 3/3 red ogre creature token onto the battlefield, unless that creature's controller pays 3.
You're keeping the theme here with me, I see.
Yeah, it's sort of. It's a little bit of a tax card, and that's basically, he's an ogre who monitors this pass, and anyone who goes by him has to pay a toll. So I like to call him the troll toll for those who like it's
Very
always sunny
lovely,
out there.
yeah, reference. I love that.
I always say when I'm playing this card, I'm like, oh, you're gonna pay the troll toll? So that's kind of what he is. I mean, it's true though, because he's sort of a reverse Ghostly Prison in that if they attack you and don't pay for it, you're going to get a creature out of it.
Which could potentially kill whatever they're sending at you.
Right, and also could end up being relevant later in the game if you just have an army of creatures you've accumulated from them attacking you.
Especially if you can duplicate it.
Right, so again, this is something you don't see in Red very often. Pillow Fort and consistent card advantage? What's going on here?
I wouldn't say it's Pillow Fort for the example that it's making it so that they're have to do that to attack you. It's more or less a consequence of action.
I actually considered making a commander deck out of this card, like playing a bunch of those cards that like force people into attacking you, so then they have to either pay a lot of mana or you make a lot of ogres.
Clever.
I don't know,
clever.
it could be pretty cool, and while it may not be the strongest commander option ever, there's still plenty of decks that want this as part of the 99.
Yeah,
because it's just a good creature, it really is.
If they have an army of like 6 guys coming at you and like they have to attack and they just tapped out to play something,
yeah,
that's 6 free guys for you.
Even in a deck like Xenagos, God of Revels, for example, which basically uses, big fatty creatures to swing in, if you play this guy and you can attack for a bunch of damage, but then you're like, oh no, I don't have anything else on the field. What if I get hit by their creatures? Well, with this guy out, you really don't have to worry about it.
It's a nice wall of defense.
Yeah, he provides his own. It's just really interesting. It's really strange for Red, which is kind of why I like it.
The only thing is that if there is a deck that's, I would say, not well built, in which they've depleted their hand, they just have a lot of mana, but they still have a board presence, they're going to use all their mana to stop it. So it's going to feel bad not getting any value or creature out from it. But again, that's a very odd scenario right there. Assuming you're playing against a really strong deck or a control deck, they're not going to have mana for their counter spells, or they're going to want to save up mana for this where they can attack now. It complicates the game, and that's the point of this card.
Right,
it really
and it's kind of the same as Ghostly Prison. I think it's even, honestly, for Red, anyway, it's almost better than Ghostly Prison because not only are you stopping people from attacking, you're getting bodies out of it if they don't pay, which is great.
Yeah, Blue's got Propaganda, White's got
Ghostly Prison,
so I guess Red's got this guy. What's Green got? No clue. No clue.
But it's just I couldn't get away without mentioning Kazul because I love him so much and I play him whenever I get the opportunity.
Might as well marry him, Kyle.
Right.
But anyway, so that is going to start wrapping up. That is our final card for this segment, our part 1. We are going to get part 2 along the ways, but until then, be sure to follow us. And Kyle, where's our social media?
Of course, well, you can hit us up at our Reddit, Twitter, or Facebook pages, all at the handle MTG The Card Pool, and let us know in the comments down below if you like the cards we looked at today, what you think of some of our picks, and of course, stay tuned for next week, where we'll be looking at part 2 of our hidden gems for this set. So, I guess that about wraps it up. I'm Kyle.
And I'm Stu, and we'll see you next time at the Card Pool.